Hey there, and welcome to the Planner Pals podcast, a podcast hosted by two true Planner Pals. My name is Mark, and I go by Mark Your Pages.
And I'm Jess, or JashiiCorrin, and this episode is kind of special because it was actually one suggested by our, I don't know, what are we calling them? Planner Pal official? But the team members or community members over on the YouTube channel, where we have an official membership now. If you wanted to be able to see our episodes early, ahead of time, as soon as they are uploaded, then make sure to check out the membership over there. But the topic we're chatting about today is planner inspiration, or inspiration from the planner community, and in particular, the creators that we love, the ones that we go back to time and time again to find inspiration, ideas, whatever else. We've lined up 3 creators each for you, and also just in the interest of shouting out somebody else, we also are going to be looking at least one person each that is non-planner related. But I swear, in thinking about who to shout out for this episode, I came to realize how much less planner content I am consuming nowadays than I used to.
It is one of those things now where I feel like you have to really, really want to watch something to keep up with it. And that's I love the Planner Pals that watch every single time. And same thing on YouTube, every time someone comments, it means so much that you're taking the time to do that because I think with any type of long form content, because we're so used to the short form content now, but it's just like a constant feed of things. And we had kind of given ourselves a little bit of grace with this one where we said, well, we can't think of YouTubers, also Instagram. And I was scrolling through Instagram and I was realizing how little content of like bullet journal planners that I follow actually show up. It is so much ads and like memes, which I mean, I'm a meme king, so like it's fine to post it, but I'm not seeing a lot of it. I actually have to now go and like click on the Instagram logo and click on followed, and that does actually show me people. I was like, that's show me the people first. Like, give me what I've been actively working on. So, I mean, I worked out okay. I figured out my people, but it is definitely something that, yeah, you don't think about as much as you're just like going onto YouTube and whatever, because those algorithms be algorithm. And it's like, what are you into now? Here's all the content for that thing that you're currently into. Forget about what you used to watch.
Literally. And I think it's kind of a nice thing in the fact that you can change what you're being presented so quickly, at least on certain platforms. I know on Instagram and YouTube in particular, I find that if you search for or watch a couple of videos in a row by like the same creator or of the same kind of topic or theme, then your algorithm can kind of churn out other stuff related to that quite quickly. I have heard that it is harder to do that on TikTok, but I am not on TikTok, really.
I mean, I use TikTok more as a personal space. I have a TikTok for Mark Your Pages and I do post things there, but it's a different world over there. But it's very true though. Like one time my brother and I send them to each other like all the time. We basically have the same algorithm. And I don't know what it was, some like silly video. And then I like swiped up and it was another one of those videos. And I was like, oh, I liked it. And then every time I went, it was like same general idea. I was like, damn, you caught on real quick. Like every now and again, I'll get like a planner person that will pop up or a fountain pen user or whatever, and not my usual, just like funny random content. And I'm just like, man, you so fast. Give me like a second. Like, okay, it's funny right now. But we've always said social media is a marketing platform, not as the user. This is the way I've always been told. If you're not paying for a service, you are the product. So we are the product. They want to keep us on there as long as possible. They're going to give you what you're currently interested in. I totally get it. But when coming it back to this topic here, the people we're talking about today, though, I can honestly say, like, I will go and search them out, especially if they're not popping up on my usual feed, because I know the content is always good.
Exactly. And I think it's also kind of nice to be able to have your like people that you come back to time and time again. I think of these people as like, if you release something, if you put something out, if you post something, I'm right there looking at it like every single time. I want you to be the top of my feed, which is why I'm going to interact with your stuff. So the algorithm's like, she likes that one. More of this, methinks. So would be your first person that is one of those people in the planner community that very much inspire you.
Absolutely. So if you are not already on the feed watching Rachel in theory, I am very much in line with her content. So what's been great about Rachel is that, I mean, I watched her come out of nowhere and then just like skyrocket from a standpoint of viewership and people watching her channel. But the reason is it's not just like, oh, you know, something random. It's like an overnight success. Her content's fantastic, and I really do enjoy it. There's kind of two main areas that I really enjoy about it. I think the first one is the fact that she is also a working person and a full-time job, and then also has this YouTube channel, and brings how she uses her planner in these systems into that space and talks about different ways of doing it. There's been a number of videos that have really stood out to me. One of my favorite ones that she did, of course, I can't think of the name of it right now, but it was this idea that every time you're interrupted during work, you write that down. And that way, when you have your one on ones or you're talking with your managers or whoever that might be, and they're asking you about how productive you have been, you can go back and be like, well, I was supposed to do these 5 tasks this week, but I was interrupted by these people asking for these other things. And that was like a really big moment where it's like, oh, damn, like I've never thought about writing that down in my journal. So that's kind of the biggest thing. She definitely is not inside of the bullet journal space. I think she's really kind of crafted her own kind of area. But man, every single time she posts a video, it's just like, tens of thousands of people that are watching the content and commenting. I'm just like, wow, like this is really amazing. But I think it really is because the topics are so on point. Like I said, I very much relate to them because of a working person using a paper planner to do the things that I'm doing. And I've always just really kind of enjoyed that perspective of it.
Yeah, I think that that method was, I think it was called the distraction method or something like that. But I love the idea of, even if you're not using it in a kind of professional setting, given that, I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, hashtag yes they can, but when you get to the end of the day and you just kind of look back and you're like, what did I even accomplish? Because half of the stuff you ended up doing, or maybe even more, was not stuff that you initially wrote down on your task list to get done that day. So you're kind of like, end of the day, scanning your eyes over this list of, like, half crossed off things, or maybe just like not even touched. You're like, cool, an entire day wasted because I didn't get these things done, but you were doing something. So it's kind of nice to have a system where you get to give yourself credit for the stuff that you are doing, whether that was expectations put on you by somebody else or just other stuff that kind of came up in the moment. I do very much think that in terms of her content and viewership that she got from, like, the get-go, because as you said, she kind of came out of nowhere and is just doing amazing. And there's definitely value in her content, very much. I do think that her marketing background comes out in that. Like, I think that she is very good at crafting like a title and a thumbnail that work really well to kind of like pique curiosity and such and kind of bring you in. But there's also a really good payoff when you get there. It's not like clickbait or anything. She's still providing value once you actually get there and watch the content.
Yeah, that was my second thing. As a creator myself, I can sit back and take a look at that and think about exactly those things. And it's funny because as I started watching her over time, I realized like there's no fancy equipment, fancy lighting, even when it comes to editing. I think recently she's done a little bit more of that, but I also know she's talked about it because we had a mastermind that we had going on. She was a part of that up front, and we had talked about it. She's like, yeah, I kind of do the content, all of that, and then her partner edits the videos. He had a background in that, and I thought that was really cool too. That was like a really exciting way to make it like a little entrepreneurial kind of system at home to say, okay, I'm going to create these contents and these and the videos themselves record that, and then I have someone who's also helping me with the titles, the thumbnails, and understanding it, and really respecting, like you said, that marketing background of it and kind of bringing that in too, which is exactly what I know that I like to do with it, especially being in digital marketing and doing those types of things and just really learning. And I really come to just really appreciate kind of that part of it too. So it's a perfect mix for me, and why I really appreciate it so much is like they're good topics, they're very user friendly. I'm not gonna lie, there's definitely the overconsumption video. Y'all know that like I don't really go for those, and there was a whole conversation there about it. I just think it's weird to have a person in the planning space making comments about overconsumption when you're pumping out content about planning and things like that. But that aside, I really have enjoyed a lot of the other pieces of that. So it's been a really cool ride. It's been someone that again I really enjoy the content. I've put a few things into place myself. I know that she works in product design, so I remember one time, and I did this too. She talked about planning in 2 week sprints, similar to product design. And I was like, that just makes so much sense. And so for a full year, I did that, and I really enjoyed it and thought it was a really great way to do it. I've definitely fallen out of practice because I've also changed my planner and what I've done, but some great tips.
Yeah, I thought the 2 week planning system was quite interesting. And that's something that I did try and implement for myself at one stage. I found, though, that it still didn't necessarily gel well with me, but that kind of like, was a stepping stone to me forming my own system of like, the cyclic and quarterly and all of that kind of thing that I do. But in terms of my first person. Which I think the funny thing about this is, okay, when we were brainstorming for the topic that we're talking about today, I was kind of talking to Mark like, oh, it's okay if maybe we do Instagram people too, because I know you don't watch a lot of planner YouTubers, like that's fine. And then when it came to picking out my people, I was just like, oh my God, struggle bus. Like, who do I actually watch that genuinely does like planners and planning on YouTube as opposed to, you know, journaling more in a kind of creative sense and such. So I turned to Instagram and still found journaling content because the person that I very much want to shout out is Alex, also known as the Journal Corner, does absolutely amazing things with especially carousel posts. Like the amount of value and information that she's packing into those is really impressive. And just like the breadth of topics that she's covering, big range of ideas. As I said, very much journaling focused, so maybe not necessarily planners, but there is still stuff that you can kind of learn from her content and apply to planners and planning. I also appreciate that she is an ex-teacher, and I think that that very much comes through in her content. She does a really good job of breaking things down and kind of, when I'm thinking about, pitching ideas and such for any given topic or whatnot, my first instinct is to go high level because I'm like, people know the basics already. But she does a really good job of doing both. I feel like she gives you the basics, but also takes you to those kind of like out of the box kind of ideas or things that maybe you haven't thought about in terms of how you can utilize materials or set up layouts in your journal or anything like that. And one type of content that she's had, along with the carousel post, which I absolutely love, was the idea of marrying memory keeping with junk journaling. Because I feel like junk journaling is kind of having a moment at the moment. So it's been really nice to see. It's like, okay, you're not just like, no offense to junk journalists, I swear I'm not coming for you. She's not just like collecting junk for the sake of having junk to put into a notebook or whatnot. She is very much thinking about, how this captures moments from her life and how she can put those together in something that becomes more of a keepsake rather than just like a mindless hobby kind of practice, which is totally fine also. Like, junk journaling is your mindless hobby and it does the thing it needs to do for you, more power to you. But I do love the idea of doing junk journaling as a memory keeping tool because that's something that I maybe want to do at some stage. But yeah, big shout out to Alex because her content is awesome.
Yeah, I was on the Art Channel ambassador team and she was.
I like you said, like I wasn't also part of the team at the same time.
Were you? Oh, I don't remember. So many people come in and out of that. It's one of those things where I can't remember. I was like, I know that we were at one point, but there was a time when you weren't, and we were like, oh, we missed each other or whatever. But we know you didn't like writing blog posts, Jess. So like, I never.
Fair.
She was always really good with new ideas, like you were saying. Like she always had very in-depth ideas and really fantastically written blog posts and breaking it down exactly like you said. I was always a little jealous because I was like, man, how are you coming up with these amazing ideas and then producing really good videos? I also really like her content too because she does do reels and she's like, out there in vocal, kind of doing all the multimedia. She was a part of the one I did with like a few years ago, where I think when we were on the team, I don't know if you were there or not at that point, but we did the like, I'm a stationary person, and we all said like things that we like to do. And like that was super fun. Like she was always open to try and do things like that and make video content and be there. She was also a really great voice, I feel like, in the planner. She's always very positive, no drama, at least that I can ever see and know of. And I also know like she's a big collector as well. She has beautiful setups for all of her stuff. So it just all the good things happen with Alex. She's a fantastic find if you haven't already found her.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. And I like your point about the the setups and such for the kind of like, I don't know, Instagram being a different beast, I very much feel. And at least in the early days of Instagram, it was very much about the aesthetic. I feel like her flat lay pictures are absolutely gorgeous. Like, that there's effort being put into that. But I love that it's not just about the kind of like the look or the styling or anything like that. There's so much value to kind of like back it up. Like I said, the carousel posts in particular, like she's given you a good crop of ideas, but because they are done in that carousel format, they're very consumable. Like when I do an ideas post, it's typically either one idea per picture per post kind of a thing if it's on Instagram, or if it was a video, it's like, hey, here's like 50 ideas in a 40-minute video. So it's nice that she kind of like has that nice middle ground of like, okay, well, here's 12 in a carousel, very savable, very findable again after the fact, and thus very utilizable, which I like.
Yeah, it's essentially like a mini blog post in a way. Like, here's 5 pictures, a description for each of them of how to do a thing. I always very much appreciate that about her. That's a really, really good one. She's fantastic. Everything about her is great.
Agree. Who would be your second person to shout out?
Yeah, so my second person would be Matt Ragland. He definitely has been influential and inspirational for me from literally the get go. When I first started and I was trying to just check out the general bullet journal space, he was definitely the most prevalent guy that was in the space. And I really like that because, as we all know, there are not a ton of guys in the planner space. There are some really great ones, but not a ton. So when I first got started and I was trying to understand it, he was really big into bullet journaling. He's had so many lives, I feel like, over the past 10 years or more. I don't know how long he's been on YouTube, but like for myself, for being on there and consuming the content, it's almost been 10 years. And so I've seen him go from bullet journaling to then getting a little bit more simplistic about it. He disappeared for a little bit. I know that he was like working full time, and that's great, and family and all that other great stuff. And then had come back in like kind of a different capacity. And then now I just feel like he's just doing very straightforward, a lot of like pocket journaling, with like pocket planning, keeping it very, very simple. I think that he's a really great perspective on planning from a productivity working kind of style. And that's what I very much like about it. Anytime I'm like, dumb it down, simplify it, like get it there, he is a go-to resource for me. On a personal level, I also like that he's a family guy. I like that you kind of get a little bit of everything. Instagram, it's a little bit of mix of everything. I feel like he's more prevalent on YouTube, especially more recently with his videos and what he's doing. And even early on, he was a great person to kind of reach out to. And I think that as I started to grow, he probably started to realize, oh, there's another guy in this community too. And started to engage with his content. And he started to engage with mine. And that was just really great. It's just kind of out there. I think at first I definitely was like, ooh, competition, like another guy in the planner space. But I think I've talked about this on past episodes where like I've completely let that go. It's not a competition anymore. For me, it is much more about the community of it, what we're doing. We're not doing the same exact content, which is fine. Even if we were, everyone has a different perspective on how they take it on. So I've just always really appreciated that and his different ideas and ways of taking it on. I think for any guys that are maybe like, ooh, I'm doing my research and I'm seeing a lot of decoration or like this looks very complex, I think it's a fantastic resource for not just guys, but anybody that wants a very straightforward approach to kind of just analog writing and kind of doing the things that you got to get done.
Yeah, I in particular just really liked your point there about, this competition versus community kind of mindset and whatnot. It's like, oh, even if we were making the same type of content, that's okay. I guess this is a real opportunity to just encourage people who are listening, planner pals. If you want to start a planner channel or Instagram or whatever else, we want your ideas. Like, we want you to do that. You are not, coming to the game too late, or, oh, I don't set up my monthly log in a completely novel and new way, so nobody gives a damn. I give damn. Make sure that you make the content so that we can consume it, so that then next time we do this episode, we can feature you, and Jess won't have such a hard time trying to figure out who to focus on.
No, that totally makes sense. What about yourself, Jess? Who's your next person?
So while Alex was very much about that idea of ideas and kind of the I guess the theory behind planning and journaling and such, because that's mainly what I like her content for. When it came to the second person, this is very much about Jess having to give in to her cute aggression, because every time I come across the posts from this person, it makes me want to like punch things in the best way because I just love their like whole vibe so much. Like the creativity that they show in their content and just the way that their layouts end up looking makes me like angry, but like happy angry. So I would love to shout out Laura or Calligra.fin over on Instagram. I love her layouts so much. I love the contrast between like the blackout pages and the pops of color she's using, or even if it's just black on white, like it's absolutely gorgeous. And as said, it makes me angry because I'm just like, why does my planner look like this? But in a good way, right? Because I know sometimes there are, certain creators or whatnot who in their planners or journals, they're doing art that just feels like outside the realm of possibility. Like you're doing hyper realistic pencil drawings or whatever. And I'm like, sure, cool. If I wanted to spend the next 3 years of my life hardcore practicing, maybe I could get to your standard, but I feel like Laura's is still approachable. Like it's still doable, but it's just like a beautiful finished product because it's not that like hyper realistic kind of drawings or whatnot that would take a very, very long time to get myself to that level. I feel like I could recreate her stuff. I'm just probably not going to be the person to do it. So I very much appreciate getting to see hers and just being like, ah, that's what it looks like. Beautiful. I think, in particular, her work on black paper and just like the contrast that she has between the different elements that she puts on there, whether colored or just white, like that's probably my favorite stuff from her. But in terms of a kind of most recent shout out, she recently shared her January setup and even just, using collaging elements and such and bringing that into a pre printed notebook, like a pre printed planner. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like what I want in some of the previous setups that I've done for myself, but you were actually able to execute on it, and it just looks gorgeous.
That's one of those accounts that I wasn't familiar with until we were putting together this episode. And then I like instantly followed. I was just like, how have I not already found this? And it turns out we've had a lot of conversations actually just in DMs and responding back to stories and stuff. And I was like, wait, I know this person. I don't know why I've never like clicked through. Like you just don't know. But going through the page, oh my gosh, it reminded me of like old Instagram when you would just scroll and drool because every photo was just so captivating and so beautiful and going through. And I always talk about this with any type of person that has a really like well done, like decorative style, layering all of that, kind of can mix, lettering with colors and all this stuff. I have so much respect for that because I can't do that. We were talking about potential episodes and I said to Jess, I was like, we should do an episode around like decorative planning and like, is that a skill? Like, can I learn that? Or is it just like an innate ability? Because it is not innate for me. We already know I have trouble with colors. Funny side story. My daughter was like, hey, I want to play this like yarn game. And I was like, oh, I want to play it too. I can't get past level 3 because I can't tell the differences in the yellow of the yarn that you have to collect. And I was like, this makes me sad. But aside from that, like I look at that and I'm just like, this is beautiful. This is amazing. Like this is so good, so well done. It inspires me to want to do it. Will I? Probably not. Not because I just don't feel confident with it yet, But I love the ideas that she's generating. So I'm so glad that you're calling her out. And I'm so glad that I like rediscovered slash discovered her, like her content actually versus the conversations we have just in the DMs, because it is so good.
I think that's the thing, right? Like when somebody sends you a message on Instagram, my first thought isn't usually to click through to their profile. So unless, a happy accident happens or we get somebody like, shouted out or whatnot, or the algorithm just feeds it up to you on a silver platter, oftentimes a lot of people go undiscovered. And I feel like Laura just needs more hype. Her stuff is so good.
It is amazing. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I was just like, exactly like you just said, like, damn, I should have clicked on that profile earlier because it was amazing.
Very much. Who would be your third person to shout out?
Yeah, so this person, I can never say their name the right way. It's JashiiCorrin, I think is how you say it. This person just has literally the best ideas on YouTube, hands down. Like anytime I'm like, you know what? I can't think of an idea. I go to their page and she just has like 5,000 ways to do this inside of your journal. And I'm like, how does a person even think of that many ways to do the same thing? And it's just so great. The other content on there is fantastic. She has all of these different like ways to approach planning, which are a little bit different than what other people are doing, but they just make sense. So she's this thing called like, I can never say it, cycle planning. How do you say it?
Cyclic planning.
Cyclic planning, which I find very interesting. But I'm just like I could, but I'm such a calendar person. That's how I work. I work in quarters, I work in days, I work in months. That's just how I go. But like the idea is very cool. She also has like a ton of these challenges that she'll do, and I'm just like, hey, I could do that too if she can do that. And it's just this really fantastic mix of like educational content, but also just like real life, and it's just on the point and so great. She has this really cool accent as well that I just think also makes me really enjoy it. And she says the most like random weird things sometimes, and then I find myself saying the same things like kettle of fish or persnickety biscuit, and everybody looks at me weird and like, who are you doing? I'm like, is this girl on YouTube? I keep like consuming all of this content and now I'm picking up her vocabulary.
Yeah, everybody needs to pick up all the mannerisms. I don't really know how I'm supposed to respond to this because I can't be like, yeah, she's awesome. You should give her a follow because that feels like very self serving.
Well, you could definitely share about your inspiration that like allows you to do that kind of stuff. I mean, answer me this question because I don't know if I've ever asked you this before. How do you generate 50 ways to do X inside of your journal? Like, how do you come up with 50 ideas? Because I can barely come up with one sometimes.
So part of it is just like the level of planner content that I used to consume. I think that like just really steeping myself in and living in that space, you just kind of like pick up and start to generate them on like a daily basis kind of a thing, I suppose, or like a quite a frequent basis. So then when you sit down to think of 50 ideas for X, Y, Z, it's like, okay, cool. Here's like the back catalog that I have kicking around in the mind palace. Like we'll just go and like, scroll these things out of hiding and put them into a collection or whatnot. But also, I think of it just more like problem solving. So it's like, okay, well, if this is the category that we're thinking in, or like, like layouts for gardening or whatever, I'm like, cool. What are all of the possible problems that you would have with gardening that could be solved by making a layout or making a collection? So it's like, okay, cool. Seasonality, watering schedules, fertilizer mixes, like recipes for those fertilizer mixes. What can you use with your grown harvest after the fact? Or like whatever, off the top of my head. I mean, in terms of, yeah, off the top of my head,
Then I'm sitting here writing them down. I'm like, okay, seeds, garden patterns. What else do you got? No, but that's the thing. It just comes so natural to you. It would take me so long to do that. And then just the fact too, like taking the time and like drawing it out and making it very approachable. I don't feel like, I don't mean this in like a bad way, but I don't feel like anything that you do, I couldn't do. Like, I mean, that you're like, very like elementary about it, but you just make it very approachable. And I think that's what I really like about it is like, oh, I might not know how to do that same thing, but I can figure it out. And it's super fun and super creative and awesome. So yeah, props to you. And you don't want to give them to yourself, you should because it's fantastic and everyone loves you and your content.
I mean, it's all a facade. Like they're all the five layouts all over again, like a list, a calendar, dividing a page into boxes, kind of a thing, and then just like slapping different title and different content on it. Oh, look, it's a new layout. But I feel like that's honestly, in terms of making your own planners and journals and whatever, that's what most of it is. It's like the same kind of base structure, just with different information and a different header on it. But unless you're kind of like, I don't know, aware of those patterns or whatnot, then you can have a collection of like 500 different ideas. You're like, wow, they're all so different. I'm like, at least 10 of those are a year in pixels in disguise.
No, it's great. And I think the other thing I really appreciate too, because before I knew you, I was watching your content, is I also really have appreciated the way that you have morphed and changed over the years too, with how you plan. We've talked about this in the past, just one on one, that a lot of people that used to be really big on Instagram and YouTube years ago when bullet journaling was all the rage, they haven't been able necessarily to keep up, whether it's just due to their wanting not to have to change out of that or maybe and I don't mean this in a negative way, but just like they're not capable of doing that, or they don't maybe have the skills or willingness to do that, whereas I feel like you've always kind of challenged yourself to kind of make that happen. I mean, again, I was watching you way back when it was a full decorative page and rainbows were exploding and things were popping out and doing whatever else, and then watching you kind of change that a little bit and come into your own, especially moving away from bullet journaling proper into how you do it and coming up with your own ways of approaching it and then getting people to grab onto that and use that and like make it their own. I think just speaks volumes to you. And I know that you're not going to give yourself the praise and the claps and the snaps that you deserve, but all of us will do it for you.
Oh, that's very much appreciated. I think it also is made better, like, if you're changing your planning style or whatnot, kind of like I've done over however many years of doing planning, it's always nice to be able to take people with you. So one of the things that I value the most about cyclic planning and such is that the idea or the concept has resonated enough with other people that they have also implemented it in their own planning styles. That makes my heart so happy. Like, because when it comes to planning, whether you're in, a pre-printed thing or you're doing bullet journaling or, just like getting out your stone tabernacle and chipping away at it every day, I'm all about people just finding systems that work well for them. And which is why when it comes to presenting ideas around planning, I always wanted it to be like the biggest width that I could possibly fit within that piece of content. So that's like there in theory is something for everyone who wants something in that topic. Like, if you're not going to start a garden, sure, maybe the gardening layout ideas isn't for you, but hopefully there's something in the kind of like, work or professional space or different weekly log structures or something about like keeping track of relationships or like whatever else. That was always very much the aim. Nowadays, it's less about the kind of, I guess, ways to set up the planner and more about how to kind of like operate in life with the plans that you have. So it's like, cool, like how do we actually get the stuff to happen as opposed to just like, let's make the structure and the layout and put the plans in.
Yeah, it's the full package. You are the full package, Jess. All right, who's your number 3?
That's a great question. Who is my number 3? Okay, excellent. I was able to find one YouTuber person to put on this list. And that's not to say that I don't watch other YouTubers who plan. It's more so just when thinking about people to shout out in this episode, I really wanted to try and focus on people we haven't really shouted out before. And so the person I wanted to shout out third was Ellie or Elisa of Ellie Plans It? Ellie Planit, which I feel like is a play on words there because it's not like planet like stars and planets, it's like plan it. So it's probably actually 2 words, but anyway, I love her content for how relatable she is, and I love that she's funny and she feels genuine, and there's a warmth to her content that I feel like in some planner spaces, especially in the more kind of, I'm going to say like aesthetic first planning that we have seen previously. I don't think we see it quite as much anymore, but there was kind of like a distance between you and the creator. It's like they were showing up to show you the finished product, but weren't necessarily giving you a glimpse into the back end processes, I guess. So I really love that Ellie takes you through the process of things. She shows you where she's kind of like questioning or like, struggling with a decision or something like that, which just adds that warmth and kind of like genuine feeling to it. One piece of content in particular I watched from her recently was just the process of picking out her 2026 planner. So going through the considerations she had even before she like, set foot in the planner shop or whatever, before she even started really thinking about which one she was going to go with, what kind of things was she considering in terms of her needs, like what is the stuff that she wants to have in there, what's the stuff that hasn't worked for her previously, and how is she going to find something to accommodate that. I have very much been vibing with her content this year so far.
One thing I most resonate that you said is relatable because it's exactly what I think about whenever I see her posts come across like Instagram. I don't know that I've watched a lot of her YouTube necessarily, but I know that I definitely see her post over on Instagram. And I do. It's just like so relatable. I don't know how else to really say it. It's not like overly processed, it's not overly set up. It looks good. It's like real use situations. And that is, I think, what I really love. And I think that's what a lot of people like about like our stuff too. And I think that's why I also gravitate towards a type of content myself. Kind of in every example that I've shared so far here too, is just like these are ways that people are actually using that and they're kind enough to actually share that with us. Like it's awesome when you get that. I know not everyone feels comfortable doing that or can, maybe because of how they use it or their job or just personal information. I mean, I still think often when you were talking about people copying like word for word, like what you were even writing in your journal, it blows my mind. But just like the idea that, it's out there, people are sharing kind of the pieces that they can. And I just feel super lucky that we have these people out there doing this as well. I think it just makes such a difference, especially for people who aren't sure how to get into it, or they're only seeing the Pinterest like worthy photos to grab people's attention, but never like the next swipe over to see like what that actually looks like. And it reminded me I need to get back to doing the like sharing what my journal looks like after the week of me using it, because so many people are like, I love that. Like that shows me like you're not just drawing it and making this real in the beginning of the week and then I never see what happens with it. And I was like, oh, I need to go back to doing that. I stopped because I hate having to blur out all the words and names and people because I do use it for work, but I get a lot of value out of it. So I have to remember like maybe you bring that back from my own account too.
No, I do think that there's very much value in getting to see how people use their planners as opposed to just like how they set it up or like what they're putting in there initially from the get-go. But of course, sharing personal information and such, there can be kind of difficulties in doing that in such a way that still keeps you and your privacy and your information safe, and also other people's information. Because, if you're using this in a work capacity, you might have sensitive information for other people in there. Like, oh yeah, not everybody on your team and the internet needs to know you had a one on one at this time with this person in this place or whatever.
It is. It's like it is the hardest part, not to like take us on a sidetrack there, but just from like a creator standpoint, it is. It's like I have to ask permission of people. You know, if I write someone's name, I'm like, I'm not writing last names, but then at the same time, it's like, well, I got to be careful because I use this, like you said, professionally in doing that. But it's definitely a wonderful way to experience content. I love seeing like a well used page because it just shows me that like I'm not alone in my craziness and like my scribbly scratches and random doodles and notes and all this different kind of stuff. It's not always picture perfect.
Yeah. Or even if like you get to the end of the week and it's only half filled in, I love that because I'm like, heck yeah, obviously I died. Didn't use any of that layout.
I know it's hard. Now I think about it all the time. I get to the end of some of my weeks and I was like, did you not do anything this week? And then I have to remember I have all these digital tools that I use for work. And it's like finding that mix between. And it's just like, yeah, you got to remember sometimes. Like it's a journal, write in it. It's okay. You don't have to write everything, but don't forget to write some things inside of it.
Exactly. Who would be your non-planner person that you want to shout out?
Yeah, so I feel like at the end of the year where we shared our like top viewers, like it was basically no, well, myself, I watched a lot of my own content. I was my number one viewer. You were on there, a few others, but some of my top non is honestly just entertainment. I love movies, I love celebrity, I love kind of all those things. So I was saying that part of mine is like New Rockstars is probably one of my favorite channels to watch because they do all of the reviews and breakdowns of all the movies and TV shows that I like. So all of the Marvel movies, all of the everything shows and everything else. I've always been really big into media and movies. I still say to this day that when I saw The Matrix in theaters, it changed my life because that was just such a otherworldly experience. And then also I really got into like TV show like lore and like tin hat theories with Lost was my first show that I got really big into it because there was so much and they weren't around when I was watching those shows. But like now with a lot of these shows, I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about this. And they're like, here's what I'm thinking about. And here's what happened. And also, I feel like this is my own fault. You're watching a movie, you're watching a show, and you're like also like on your phone or doing something else and you miss all those little details. Or again, like I'm not that eagle eye, like hardcore fan. Like I haven't read every single Marvel comic book to know all of the lore. But when they call that out and they show that and they talk about the history of, it just makes me feel really like immersed inside of the space. And also then you read through the comments and there's other people there that are like just excited or calling out things that they saw. And it really makes it feel like a community. So as I'm enjoying content, my girls are always like, wait, why are you watching a YouTube video about the show that you just watched last night? And I watch like several channels. I watch 3 different like movie TV show channels because they all are pulling out different things. Some of them are the same. They're all just general, but like I love that kind of thing. So, when I'm not using my journal or making content, I love movies and TV shows. And so that's my big one.
No, that's awesome. I kind of get I don't know, secondhand version of that because Vogel does a similar thing with a lot of the kind of movies and such that we end up watching together or he watches by himself, watching kind of like not necessarily analysis, but like a review kind of a thing with a little bit of analysis or whatnot. My favorite version of that would definitely be Dead Mate. I think that they do a really good job of theirs because they are pretty much just doing horror films, horror games, and whatnot. In particular, I love their game series because of Zoran. Zoran is great. Like, we love Zoran in this household. So if you're a Dead Meat fan and you also like Zoran, you let me know. But those ones in particular, just like going through and talking about the kind of making of the films and then also doing what the kind of main point of the video is, which is the kill count. So how many people got offed in this film specifically, and then like doing a little stat breakdown at the end. It's all just a bit of fun. But that one, it's not necessarily like my recommendation in a sense because I kind of just watch it with Vogel, but definitely my favorite version of like movie analysis.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, share yours. What's your favorite non-planner channel, YouTube, Instagram thing to feed on?
Yeah, so despite finding this creator like what, maybe halfway through last year or something, I ended up in the top like 0.6% of viewers worldwide or something. I watched like 190 of her videos. But this would be Hannah Alonzo. She does like anti MLM and also like influencer kind of content, you know, not necessarily like exposing influence or whatever, but she has a series called Influencer Insanity, which I find really interesting. And the reason that I came across it is because I was in the back end of my YouTuber analytics, like, you know, just looking through different bits and pieces of information. And one of the pieces of information that YouTube gives you in the back end is what other people who watch your content are watching. And one of the videos that came up was this influencer insanity video. And I was like, why are people who watch me watching this? Like, did I do something wrong? Like, my first thought was, oh my God, have I done something wrong? You know, just to lump myself in with the influencer crowd for a second there. It was definitely not about me. Absolutely not. This was for people who have like millions of followers, kind of a thing. I'm not on that level. But I did then, you know, very quickly get just hooked on her Influencer Insanity series, watched all of those. But the primary content that she actually makes is anti MLM. And the thing with anti content or people who make content like specifically like their stance is against something else is that oftentimes it can come off very like negative and very blamey, but hers just doesn't. Like all of the ways that she pitches things always come from a place of kindness for the people who are like, you know, in MLMs or like working with them or whatnot and such, and just kind of unpacking things as related to multi level marketing or whatever. So some of the ones she does are MLM horror stories where people who follow her channel write in with their stories about how MLM persons have, you know, been in their life somehow, whether that be like, you know, the salesman came to my door and like wouldn't leave, or it could be like, hey, my friend got involved with an MLM and then like used my personal tragedy to sell their product and stuff like this. It's very interesting. One of the things I very much like is that it's really well researched, it's very thought provoking, and she just does it from a very like genuine place of kindness, which is quite nice.
I would say it's quite nice because when I was looking them up, because I hadn't heard of her before, and all the thumbnails, she does a very good job with the thumbnails. It's like 90 minutes of calling out influencers, or like influencers are lying to you, exposing their real lifestyles. I'm like, oh, this is like gossipy tea. Okay, I think I'm gonna like this too. But then it was funny with the MLMs because if anyone ever watched my YouTube channel with my brother, we all know that he's a personality. He was a part of one, and I was watching through some of those videos and I was like, oh my God, I could write it with mine because it is crazy. Like the levels that people will go through to like sell you something. Now, my brother did very well with his. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but he could sell anything to anybody. And but it was really funny watching those. But I definitely, I'm not gonna lie, I started watching it when I saw the name and I was like, oh, this sounds juicy. But you're right. I mean, I'm all about that to a certain extent too. Like we talked about this again in a previous episode. Well, the overconsumption video, I think, is where it came out the most, where I was like, social media is marketing. Like the whole point of this is to sell you things and do that. And we all know that some of it can be very cringy. I'm sure all of us at some point in our lives, you and myself included, have done a cringy thing when it comes to like trying to promote or do a thing. It's a part of it. You also learn a lot about it. And when you're just getting started, I mean, in our little like Instagram engagement chat, like y'all used to make fun of me. They're like, you could send anything to Mark and he'd talk about it. And I was like, yeah, well, when I first got started, I was like, whoa, someone's going to send me a thing. Yeah, I don't care what that is. Like, has nothing to do with anything that I talk about, but hell yeah, it will. Someone's sending me something for free. But it is just like the reality of it. We all see it. You know, we have friends that are like full influencer lifestyle. Like I'm not into the fashion part of it, but I have a few other parent friends that like are very much into it, and they'll be like, oh, she wore this, so I bought that. And then again, like that person looks like they're on the cutting edge of fashion because like no one else is wearing that yet. And it's very much about that. Like I don't consume from that space. So like I don't know a whole lot about it. But the people that I know that do, I mean, that's what they do. I mean, and it's awesome. And it's in there. They're usually selling something. That's I feel like most people are, especially when you do that full time. That is your money. That's how you make money. That's how you make a living. Instagram and TikTok, they're not paying you what you think, you know, maybe, I mean, maybe she is because like she's got millions of views on every single one of her videos. So like she's making good money over there, but like not everyone is, and you all got to start somewhere.
No, very fair. I think that the nice part is that like based on the fact that it is like well researched content and such, it's not just like oh gossip blame blame kind of a thing. You know, she kind of highlights that back end stuff to people who aren't as familiar with the back end of social media. So it's like, yeah, sure, you get, you know, ads on videos and such, and that small commission from that goes to like the creator or whatever. But then you also have a lot of content that is being focused on these types of videos, which is like linked in my Amazon storefront. And so while the content might be, you know, outrageous or something to really gain viewership or whatnot, that you know she's focusing on, not her content, but the content she's you know, what providing commentary on. It's like, sure, it's getting a whole bunch of views because she's this person has like made the content in such a way to get a lot of views. But at the end of the day, the thing that actually makes them money is, oh, link in bio or go and buy this thing from my Amazon storefront or whatever. And it's those kickbacks and that commission. So it's a kind of nice way to highlight some of the things online that I don't personally see because like I'm not on TikTok. In terms of my Instagram like algorithm, it's not really showing me those kind of things. So it's an opportunity for me to see that kind of content and enjoy the commentary around it without having to like I don't know, ruin my algorithm to see it like constantly.
Yeah, no, it's good to have like that little like guilty pleasure space of things. I think like, I agree. Like we all need that in some capacity because I feel like if all you're doing is consuming one type of thing, like you have to have an outlet from that. And again, because I'm not like full planner consumption all the time, like I pick and choose on the people that I really kind of go through. I think it's the ones that like stand out the most that are like really exciting. Again, it's someone that I might not necessarily subscribe to all of their stuff because there's plenty of people that have that like breakout video. I mean, I'm probably one of those people myself. Like my YouTube videos don't get like a ton of views all the time, but there's a handful of them that have done really well over time. And I thank all the goodness for those sometimes where I'm like, oh, what's made the most money? Oh, this video from 5 years ago. Okay, like, well, why remake it? It's still doing well. But then there's just like a lot of things where you see that. But I also think it's a really great way to kind of get introduced to other people. I don't know how many people are really like sharing videos. I know that they do because I try to think about myself now with like content. Like I'll share a lot of TikToks and reels, but I don't know that I'm sharing a lot of YouTube content necessarily.
No, I think that like Instagram as a platform is based on the direct message, right? Like that is a big part of the platform, whereas we don't have that here on YouTube. So in terms of like sharing content from YouTube, obviously it happens because when I look at my weekly stats, it's like, oh, your video's got X number of shares this week. I'm like, who is sharing this and to whom? Like, where is this going?
I think the same exact thing. Like the only time, like on Instagram, where I'll see like someone shared this thing, it'll like pop up and say this person shared it to their stories. But then you see a little airplane at the bottom, and I'm like, oh, people are sending this to other people. Like they thought of someone else when they saw that, which is like what I do on other content. And it makes me really happy. I'm like, oh, that was nice that they did that. I'm glad they thought of somebody else when they saw my ridiculous reel.
But Planner Pals, we would very much love to know who in the planner community would you love to give a shout out to? Who are the creators that you are consuming all of their videos or all of their posts? Let us know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or hit us up at plannerpalspodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up over on Instagram at Planner Pals Podcast.
The comments are just going to say, Jess, 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 Jess. Hey, I heard about Mark through Jess. Jess. No, I'm just kidding. You're
Absolutely
great.
not. It's like, hey, I found out about this like weird like girl from New Zealand because I just love Mark so much.
I love when they're like, I found your podcast because I watched this random video. I'm like, oh, awesome that they're referring it to you. This has been a great episode. Thank you all so much for watching. I can't wait to hear about who your favorites are as well. And we'll talk to you next time, friends. See ya.